to the September 24, 2020 meeting of the Miami City Commission. I don't see Commissioner Carollo. I know we were discussing this item last. There he is. Okay.
Hey, listen, I heard that Rosa, the security guard, wants to apply for the position, so she might be a good bet.
Well, she can certainly run for a sheriff in Broward County.
It's an important time to save. With Priceline, you can get up to 60% off on amazing hotels.
So what are we doing?
You get a big deal.
I would recommend that you advise the manager to form a committee and go from there.
I can't hear you, Vicky. I'm sorry.
That you recommend are we back on IT?
Yes, we're on TV. Yes, we're broadcasting.
Thank you. I recommend, as Commissioner Carollo stated, that the manager form a committee based on his resolution. I would request that that no commissioner or the mayor appoint a person for now, unless you instruct me to get an opinion, just to clarify that. But if not, he can start a blue ribbon committee, and based on the timeframes that are suggested for now.
We can't hear you. You won't have to do what you did last time.
Is that us directing the manager to form that commission, or is that him doing it unilaterally on his own volition?
I believe he's going, there was discussion. All of you spoke about it. You think it's an important thing about there being a committee. And if the manager chooses to do so, which I thought he said on the record that he would do a committee, then that's fine. But it's not with appointments by the commission.
Mr. Chair,
The manager doesn't need a resolution from us to appoint a committee. He could do it on his own.
Correct. That too. Do I need to log out and come back in?
I'm having difficulty hearing you. I don't know what the rest of the
Yeah, you're very low.
Yeah, you're very low, so.
Back.
At least you haven't been cut off completely like I was before, and the mayor was.
I didn't know Chairman Hardiman had the power to mute us. It's pretty cool. I mean, it's interesting.
I don't think so.
You never know what kind of power I have.
I have a sense of it.
I don't use it. You see?
I have an idea of it.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
As we were all discussing before, the selection of the chief is very important. You all want to have conversations, etc., in line with the charter. With that said, if the manager wishes to do a committee, which I believe that's what he said he would do.
Yes, he did.
That is great. I encourage you not to appoint someone because of the ambiguity with the language in the charter. I would encourage you not to appoint someone to the committee. But you can have discussions, conversations, the type of person that you want at the head of the police department. Of course, as elected officials, you can discuss all that and your visions and everything that you would want in that type of person. I just ask that you don't appoint someone just based on the ambiguity. Commissioner Carollo had an excellent point. A committee should be done. I just ask that you don't appoint somebody for now, unless you.
In any other city in America, that would seem normal and the right thing to do. Not in Miami.
Yes.
Maybe if I would go the other way and say that we appoint a committee of thugs, gangsters, and others alike, then, some people would be very happy with that. and that'd be no problem.
Okay. Then we move on.
But do we need a motion to reconsider PI number 2?
Did it pass?
No,
Yeah.
there's no motion to reconsider,
No, it
because it's a
didn't pass.
pocket item, and we never voted on it.
Right.
Mhm.
Oh, we did.
Chair, we did vote on it.
Yes, we did.
Yes, both pocket items were voted on at the same time.
1 and 2. 1 and 2.
So what could be done is a reconsideration of,
Of item 2, or pocket item 2.
yes.
But
and then-
hold
So I
on,
move to
hold
reconsider.
on. When it was
I move
gonna
to
be
reconsider
voted
pocket
on,
item 2.
I stated that how could we vote on it when I hadn't explained what it was about?
He's
We
right.
didn't vote
He's
on it.
right. I remember that. We didn't
Yeah.
vote.
We never voted on it.
We never voted on it.
We never voted, that's why I remember.
I need a motion to reconsider PI number 2.
Move it. Move it.
Seconded by the chair. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All against? Motion carries. Now the item is back on the agenda, never been voted on before. We can move on.
Correct. We'll show it as discussed for the minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
Fantastic.
All right, one more. We're moving on.
Yes.
Okay. Do we want to handle the item number 3?
Redistricting?
Yeah, do we want to handle it now or do we want to skip it?
There to reconsider, correct?
We can do it quickly. It's just, we're gonna begin the redistricting process and it's just to direct the city manager. We don't have to have a long discussion. I know we have a lot of other things to talk about. But we do need to address, the disparities that exist between different districts and deviations that exist. And, you know, the whole one man, one vote rule. We have some districts that have more, voting age population, people than others. And we kind of need to readdress those boundaries. So what I've asked the city manager, we discussed it, and I discussed it with our mayor also, is sort of to hire a professional consultant to come in and work with our city attorney to sort of create a process that we can find and redraw districts in the city of Miami for the 2021 elections. And that requires a number of public hearings, input, and sort of demographic studies to see exactly what we need to do to be where we need to, all the stakeholders come in place and working together to come up with new districts, new boundaries for existing districts. I've made it clear from my perspective to our city manager that we need to respect within the legal parameters that we have, the fact that our city is very unique. The same way that we make decisions about who the police chief is going to be, we have to be very sensitive to an Anglo, as we call it here in Miami, district and an African-American district to protect those minorities that need categorical representation. Because here in Miami, Anglos, Commissioner Russell, you're the minority. So we make sure that we protect those districts so that everyone has a voice and everyone has a commission that understands them and culturally and ethnically and racially. And so that those sensitivities are important in what we're doing, what we're going to do, but we let the lawyers and the consultants kind of decide, and demographers kind of decide where we're going to go and how it's fair for everybody else, with everybody having input, obviously, every commissioner. And I would probably recommend that we do public hearings in every commission district, that we obviously, the first thing that any consultant will do is meet with every commissioner and kind of walk and talk through the details.
Through the chair, and I'm glad to hear that, as you stated, that we want to make sure that there are certain seats that we have to be protected. But my question is, when this process is going to start?
Immediately. So we have a conversation that our city manager had, and everything is going to be done very transparently with Senator Galvano, who's also an expert in redistricting. He's someone which I recommended to our city manager that he will come in. He's someone that has no vested interest in what happens in city of Miami politics, which is very important, because unfortunately, if you bring people here, you know, I'm not overly cynical, but I mean, I'm somewhat cynical, and people have their own political interests, and, you know, and have their own political agendas. So you bring somebody from outside to consult and help us. He's done it 3 times, and he was a head of redistricting in the Florida Senate. He's going to be twice. I mean, first in the Florida House of Representatives and the Florida Senate, and now he's going to do it for the next Senate President, the guy who's coming after him, to redistrict. So in Tallahassee, we did redistricting after every census because the population shifts occurred, and we wanted to make sure that one district. I'll give you an example. I looked at some preliminary numbers. We do it based on voting age population. We don't do it based on registered voters. We can't do it based on that or political party, any of that. We do it on voting age population, 18 and over. Commissioner Russell's district, I think, has 50,000 or something like that registered voters. I have 32,000. So he's representing a lot more people than I am. So those deviations that exist and those differences have to be addressed. So some areas we add territory to it, and we take territory away from other areas, geographic, to kind of balance that out so that every commissioner represents roughly 100,000 people, and not registered voters, just 100,000 people, the 500,000, close to 500 we have in Miami. They use the census to kind of determine that. The census result, final census results won't be known until 22, but they do extrapolations based on that.
Okay.
And then they kind of can determine the final, so that the timeline, to answer your question, I think in a very convoluted way, is that we probably want to have a map in place by March, so that we can have new districts by the end of March, maybe early April, and then everybody knows where they're running, as they're running in 21, and everybody knows who they represent, who they'll be representing or running.
Commissioner, my other question is, and I think that you answer it, and I ask the city manager, what type of data are we going to use, since if we are going to use our census data from 2020, it won't be in for a long time. And what are we going to do? We're going to do some type of statistical forecasting or statistical estimates, or
correct. And our city manager is better able to answer that. I think Senate President Galvano because he's an expert on this. I'm not. He's gone through all the legal.
You've been in that process many times.
I've done a lot of redistricting. I did redistricting.
Wow.
He's a lawyer, and he has more of the, and the laws changed a little bit, and we have a Fair Amendments Act, a Fair Districts Act amendment that passed in 2010, so it's changed a little bit. So, but there's an extrapolation that takes place. There's some preliminary information that's issued by the U.S. Census Bureau that says this is a number of people we think is going to be the case, and that is based on that. He thinks, the Senate President told me when I met with him a couple of days ago, that there will be, he'll have a good analysis. Maybe by May. We had a little bit of a concern that it was a little bit too late. We want to be able to tell every commissioner, or he can tell us whether, this is the people you're going to be representing, and these are the areas that are still in. But we have to be careful not to use any political considerations along the way. So there are community of interest arguments. There are natural boundaries, whether it's a street or a highway that we take into account. And in Miami in particular, and in some areas of Florida, not only Miami, but in the case of we're dealing with Miami, is that we have we have the special things that we have going on here, which is we have to have, and we should have, because it's a way we have better government, an African-American commissioner, and we have to have an Anglo commissioner to represent certain areas. So that diversity is reflected in its elected officials. That we make better decisions, I think, as a result. Legally, the lawyers and Vicky and Galvano and the consultants will come up with a remedy, legal remedies for all those considerations.
All right, thank you. Okay.
And I'm going to read you very quickly some things. There are, just to kind of finish it off. I don't want to talk too much about it because I think we'll have plenty of time to have the opportunity to talk about it. But I'm going to read you. Districts should use, when possible, well-known natural and man-made boundaries, rivers, streets, man-made. It could be US 1, it could be the Miami River, it could be Biscayne Boulevard, things like that. That the minority group is large enough and compact enough to form a single-member district. We had a preliminary conversation, Commissioner Hardiman, about making sure that we protect. We can't say protect; that's the wrong word. That we legally figure out a way to have an African-American district, so that representation exists. So they have to be compact enough that we don't split those communities into different places so that they cannot elect an African-American commissioner, right? That we don't put too many of one community in one place. And that's kind of part of the process of getting there. I think that this is good for Miami. I think that the proper representation, the right amount of people, Coconut Grove, downtown Miami, Coconut Grove, these areas have grown exponentially, especially downtown Miami. So we have Commissioner Russell representing a lot more people than Commissioner Reyes or Commissioner Carollo, and that's not the way it should be. It should be even, right? So that's sort of as close to a deviation to be as close as possible, as limited as possible, so there's not too much deviation, and that's the approach. So we wanted the city manager to move forward, and that's what the purpose of this discussion item is, to move forward in hiring a consultant. The city attorney, which I've spoken to about this also, will work with the consultants. And by the way, on top of that, they get demographers and other people that will help us, and to begin the whole public hearing process, conversations with every commissioner immediately once Senator Galvano comes on board to tell us, hey, this is the best way to do it, and for the commissioner to say, wait a minute, no, we don't like that, how about this, how about that, and to ask all the relevant questions. Going into December, and then the public hearings in the beginning of the year. There's no timeline because he's the one, and the city attorney and the manager will set up the timeline. But the idea is to get everybody comfortable with having their new district in quote marks, right? Because some districts may be very similar, but some areas will be moved, obviously, because you have to change the boundaries to accommodate the shifts in population. That everybody will know who their constituents are by the end of March, maybe the beginning of April, a loose timeline like that, but nothing later than that, to allow whoever's going to run for office in a re-election, or whoever is going to represent people, where they hold their community meetings, what neighborhoods they go to, and if there's a shift in neighborhoods, then for example, Commissioner Reyes, that you don't have to hang out in Silver Bluff anymore. That's a hypothetical, right? And maybe you have to hang out somewhere else, right?
You want to take Silver Bluff away?
Maybe hypothetically, Commissioner Russell now represents Silver Bluff, and now it's in his backyard, right? He can deal with that. But that's sort of the process, and it'll be a very orderly process. It'll be a legitimate process. It'll be a legal process, and it'll be an open process. And that's what we want to do. To have everybody in the right place.
Okay, that's right. I'm looking at the number of voters that each district has, and you have 34,000, and Commissioner Carollo, you have 33,000. I have 42,000, and D5 48,000. But Commissioner Russell, as we well stated, has 59,000 as represented.
59,000.
I mean, there is a disparity. I mean, there is not.
That's the issue.
That's the issue. It's a disparity.
And there's a deviation. There's a deviation that occurs of a certain percentage that says, wait a minute, that's not it's not constitutional. That you have someone, a commissioner with one vote representing more people.
Absolutely.
Than the rest of us. So that's the balance. So we take.
What does District 5 have?
District 5 has 48,000 and 48. 48,048.
It goes by voting. It goes by voting age population. 18 plus, right?
Regular voters.
Voting age population.
Yeah, you can only take it by voting age population because we have people that are not citizens, right? And our district,
particularly in your district,
in my district, and and Commissioner Carollo's district,
Carollo's and some of mine.
The people that are not citizens cannot afford to live in Commissioner Russell's district, so they have to live in other parts of our city, right? So that's what happens. So you can't go by registration. You can't go by party affiliation. You have to go by voting age population. So that's where you look. But if you look at the registration, you have an idea of where the population shifts occur. So you know for a fact that Commissioner Russell's district has grown exponentially over the last 4 or 5 years. You just have to look at downtown Miami to know that, right? So that's where they're moving. And that's where they're going. And that's where people are coming from New York and from other parts of the country, and that's sort of how we need to address that issue, is begin to move some of those boundaries to make sure that everybody has the same amount of more or less, right? Not the same amount, but more or less the same amount of of voting age population residents in the district.
Okay.
And that's what we want to do. And I think it should be a process that's done after every census, the way it's done throughout the country. Because it just allows for that one man, one vote rule that matters to who you represent, and to the voice that every individual has with their elected in a representative democracy. And that's what we're trying to do here. There's nothing political about it. There's nothing. It's just a simple situation that we need to have the proper representation, and that's what we want to do. At least begin that process, and then we have a debate.
Okay, that's fine.
How do you guys feel about two more commissioners at large? So we have 7?
What's that?
7
Well,
commissioners?
well, we can have that conversation. Can we have a couple of large? Does that dilute minority representation in the city of Miami?
Yes.
We don't know, but I'm open to that conversation, by the way.
Well,
And I think we have professionals doing this. We can have those conversations. I'm not a guy that, look, I think that maybe that could be a case. There's a case to be made for that. The problem with that sometimes is that when you have it, remember, when you have it citywide, you're probably going to elect Hispanic American to a citywide race. And that actually dilutes some minority, what is a minority in Miami, right? So you may dilute African American representation, as an example, because you're electing 2 more Hispanic Americans.
That's
Because
what.
in a Miami-Dade County, in a city of Miami election, you're more likely to elect a Cuban American than you are to elect any other minority, including you, Commissioner Russell, because you're a minority here. You go anywhere north of
Somehow a Japanese American got elected. Somehow.
That's true.
Wait. You mean you're not Anglo? You mean that I went through all that
Be there,
suffering
Commissioner.
to make sure we had an Anglo district and an African American district? And you're telling me you're not an Anglo now?
Separate base of voters here. Yeah.
You don't know who you work for, Joe. You don't know who you work for.
Everything is the most important thing that I want to do seriously is to make sure that this is a completely open and transparent process with public hearings, with everybody having input, and so that people understand. It's not an easy, it's not easy for the average voter to know what the importance of it, but it really is in terms of proper representation, I think.
Yes.
And
Okay.
and I think it's a right way to do it. And maybe Chairman Hardiman, you leave a little legacy that we do something over a legacy over 10 years, and every 10 years we do this, right? After every census, to make sure that we get it right. And so we take it from here. I mean, and that's a discussion item. But I also want to direct or ask our city manager and our city attorney to move forward with the whole process, so we get it on track and we have a timeline to come back to us with a timeline of when we're going to have our public hearings, when we're going to have our debates, our conversations, and I would like for our consultants, our demographers, to meet with every commissioner sooner rather than later, but get input from everybody as to what we want to do here.
All right. Okay.
So that's it. I don't need a motion or anything. It's just a conversation and
Point
discussion.
well taken. In my opinion, I don't have any more questions.
All right, so now what we can do is we can move quickly through as quickly as possible through the PC agenda.
Yes.
There isn't anything, Mr. Clerk, that needs to be read into the record, right? There's no tape that needs.
Before you do that, Mr. Chairman, can we do we need to formally ask our city manager to move forward, or can he do it? Just give him the discretion to do what he needs to do on the redistricting item, or just say it and that's it, and move on to the PC agenda.
Yeah, we just move on. I think he
Okay.
I think that you just gave him a directive already.
Yes. I just want to
Yes,
make sure that
that's what
everybody
he
was
did.
in agreement. We're all okay. All right. Thank you.
I mean, you can always formalize it if you want everybody to say, yes, we're going forward with redistricting, but a directive is fine. I didn't hear any objections.
I don't think we need to formalize it. I think nobody objected to it, so I think we're fine. We're good to go.
Perfect.
I think. I always count on my city attorney to give me my advice, because I'm a newbie to Miami. How you guys do it here in my hometown?
Madam City Attorney, PZ 5, 6, and 7. Those are all ordinances, I believe. Let me check. 5, 6, 7. Yes, they're ordinances.
Warranty.
Can you read the titles into the record, please?
6.
An ordinance of the Miami City Commission amending the zoning atlas of ordinance number 13114, the zoning ordinance of the city of Miami, Florida, as amended by changing the zoning classification from D1 Work District Transit Zone to T6120 Urban Core Transit Zone open for the property located at 690 Northwest 13th Street, Miami, Florida, as more particularly described in Exhibit A, attached and incorporated, making findings containing a severability clause, and providing for an effective date. I think I read PZ 6 first. Now I'm going to read PZ 5. An ordinance of the Miami City Commission with attachments amending ordinance number 10544 as amended the future land use map of the Miami Comprehensive Neighborhood Plan pursuant to small scale amendment procedures subject to section 163-3187 Florida statutes by changing the future land use designation from light industrial to restricted commercial of 2.805 acres of real property located at approximately 690 Northwest 13th Street, Miami, Florida, is more particularly described in Exhibit A, making findings containing a severability clause and providing for an effective date.
It's also PC 7. Are you going to include in this?
All right, madam, can you read PZ 7 as well?
This one's very long. An ordinance of the Miami City Commission with attachments amending the zoning atlas of ordinance number 13114, the zoning ordinance of the city of Miami, Florida, as amended by changing the zoning classification from T68L Urban Core Transit Limited to T680 Urban Core Transit Zone Open for the properties generally located at 1139, 1146, 1148, 1155, 1157, 1160, 1161, 1164, 1166, 1169, 1177, 1208, 1212, 1216, 1223, 1230, 1233, 1238, 1241, 1244, 1245, 1300, 1305, 1312, 1316, 1318, 1338, 1342, 1344, 1352, 1358, 1360, 1363, 1400, and 1414 Northwest 7 Court, 1136, 1145, 1146, 1147, 1156, 1158, 1159, 1163, 1165, 1190, 1192, 1194, 1196, 1201, 1216, 1227, 1228, 1230, 1233, 1241, 1243, 1251, 1303, 1313, 1319, 1320, 1321, 1325, 1337, 1345, 1351, and 1361 Northwest 8th Avenue, 1171, 1173, 1217, 1219, 1222, 1224, 1226, 1230, 1232, 1234, 1248, 1310, 1312, 1320, 1321, 1322, 1326, 1330, and 1350 Northwest 8th Court, 1133, 1150, 1177, 1180, 1181, and 1191 Northwest 8th Street Road, 1220, 1223, 1230, 1231, 1234, 1235, 1236, 1238, 1246, 1247, 1302, 1310, 1311, 1313, 1318, 1320, 1328, 1331, 1333, 1335, 1336, 1337, 1330, 1342, 1345, 1349, and 1361 Northwest 9th Avenue, 1200, 1231, 1311, 1321, 1331, and 1347 Northwest 10th Avenue, 1145, 1157, 1158, 1180, 1204, 1226, 1244, and 1249 Northwest 11th Street Road, 720, 724, 726, 727, 737, 745, 747, 756, 758, 759, 760, 762, 771, 777, 803, 806, 808, 810, 813, 816, 826, 828, 836, 843, 845, 847, 849, 914 and 933 Northwest 12th Street, 732, 735, 763, 766, 770, 771, 808, 833, 851, 853, and 919 Northwest 13th Street, 724, 783, 784, 786, and 800 Northwest 14th Street, 1000, 1005, 1008, and 1010 Spring Garden Road, and 1000 Sunnybrook Road, Miami, Florida, is more particularly described in Exhibit A, making findings containing a severability clause and providing for an effective date.
Vicky, could you please read it again? I got lost in that. I mean, could you please?
I know that at 12:30 and 12:32 and 12:34, I lost you, so.
That's right.
Yeah, you can continue,
Yeah,
please, from there.
Same thing happened to me, sir.
8th Avenue, yeah.
Thank you, thank you. PZ8, that one, is PZ8 also on, Chairman, I'm sorry?
No, PCA was deferred.
Okay, thank you.
The chair would like to entertain a motion to approve items PZ 5, 6, and 7.
Move it.
Don't move.
Second.
If I may, Mr. Chair,
Discussion,
if I may, Mr. Chair.
you are recognized, sir.
Thank you, sir. For the record, Francisco Garcia, Director of Planning. I just wanted to state that for item PZ7, I have to state for the record that I am submitting a copy of the signed PZAB resolution into the record. Thank you.
I may ask, now you brought that up, that was voted down, right, by them, 5-4, because they need a supermajority?
That is correct. They moved to approve, but they failed to reach a supermajority.
And what was that?
They,
And what was the debate about? Why did they not get it was a 5-4 vote? It's a lot of property, a lot of folios. What was the reasoning? I'm just curious.
No, understood. The back and forth, Commissioner, at the PZAB had to do perhaps with some level of concern about increased density and intensity. And you heard that as well from some of the people who called in earlier today.
Yes.
This is an opportunity for me to clarify that there is no change in density. The density remains exactly the same at 150 units per acre. And that as pertains to intensity, the only thing that's changing is the range of uses. The existing zoning designation allows for a very limited range of uses. This will expand it to achieve, hopefully, a mixed-use redevelopment of the area, which is very much clearly presently underdeveloped.
Yes.
And this is something, Commissioner Hardeman, you think is a good idea in your area, right?
Yes, it's interesting because I used to actually live within those.
I know, that's why I'm asking you. I know where you live.
So, yes, I think it's a good idea. It already has, first of all, like the newest things that have been built, they have been apartment complexes, really. So you have these apartment complexes that are throughout the area. A lot of vacant land, and many parcels of that vacant land under similar ownership as well. So I mean, there's just a lot of things going on there. That's the corridor, especially near 14th Street, where you're going from the women's jail to the health district, right? So when you drive through there, I mean, you can see that it's completely underdeveloped, and that there's in all actuality, we did a rezoning for a parcel of land. I think the county owned it to a T680, I believe. And so now this begins to match everything that was around that. So I think it'll do that area very well, and it'll actually complement what's going on PZ5 and PZ6, because now you have not just one little development, another little development. It's kind of, it can be more uniform in the mixed use area, because that's what that area really amounts to be. And it doesn't tie into Spring Garden. People say it doesn't go into Spring Garden. This is Highland Park North type area. So
I trust your judgment. You know that area better than I do, but so you think it's good for that area? It's going to be good for our city?
yes, sir.
Awesome. Thank you, Chair.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the item, say aye.
Aye.
All against? Motion passes. Okay, now we have PZ4, which is the Health Board Decision Appeal, 713 Northwest 7th Street Road. Can we elevate those participants.
Mr. Chair, mindful of protocol, is it the case that a number of us need to be sworn in at some point in time?
If they're going to be testifying, if you have witnesses that will be testifying, those witnesses would be sworn in, I would imagine, but I
So
don't.
right, the remote people, Ms. Catrillon and Mr. Khalil, they were supposed to send Olga Zamora their affidavits. Did that happen?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Khalil, we cannot hear you. You have very low volume.
There's no volume.
I'm not sure if you can hear me better now in this location. Testing, 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 testing. Hello? Does this help? Can you hear me?
You might want to try reconnecting to Zoom.
Can you hear me? Hello? 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 Testing, testing. Can you hear me? Hello?
Mr. Khalil, it's super, super low. So you're going to have to hang up and reconnect again.
All right, let me try.
Oh, maybe, did you change position or something? Because we heard you for a little bit.
Moving around to see what's the best angle.
That's not good enough.
Okay, it's not good enough pursuant to our chairman, so you're going to have to hang up and call back in.
Okay, let me do that.
Thank you.
If you're speaking, Mr. Khalil, we still cannot hear you.
Oh, it's on my phone. Maybe that'll help.
know if you can hear me here, but I called in from my phone also, so I don't know if that's another quick way for you to hear it.
Your phone is muted. If you can unmute your phone call, I promoted it to talk, so.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
You do have feedback.
Perfect.
The issue that you're gonna have now is that you have feedback from your computer and your phone.
Hold on. Let me see. I'll just walk away into my speech. Hold on. All right. Good afternoon, members of City Commission. I want to start our presentation with the conclusion made by city staff in their analysis for the special certificate of appropriateness on our design, as they provided substantial and competent evidence to our compliance with the design in the historic district of Spring Garden. In their report, city staff states, wait, hold on. I don't know if I introduced myself. My name is Eduardo Khalil from Khalil Architects, and I'm introducing Ms. Sharon Catrion for our design. All right. I'm going to continue with city staff's report, saying that the proposed new single-family residence is a two-story structure of contemporary design that incorporates several design cues from the wood frame structure that previously occupied the site. City staff continues to state in their report as to how our design succeeds in meeting the requirements based on Chapter 23 of the City Code of Ordinances and the Secretary of Interiors of the United States of America. According to the Secretary of Interior standards, new construction related to historic buildings shall use the same forms, materials, and color range of the historic building in a manner that does not duplicate, but distinguishes it from the original building, basing alignment, rhythm, and size of windows and door openings of the new building on those of the historic building. In this case, we're not discussing an historic building specifically, but more of a historic district. City staff followed the guidelines of the historic structures set forth by the Secretary of Interiors of the United States of America with their report. They break their evidence-based analysis on 6 criteria, including form, height, space, yards, materials, and rhythm and pattern of windows and doors. I would like to quote a few of those items, specifically form, materials, and rhythm of openings and pattern. Form. The proposed structure has a contemporary appearance. However, it takes a number of design cues from the existing historic structures within the district and the wood frame house that previously occupied the site, including board form stucco that resembles horizontal wood siding, smooth stucco, a flat roof with a parapet, eyebrows, a covered entry, a carport, a 3-bay front elevation with an appropriate window and door pattern. The overall design of the structure resembled the historic structure that previously occupied the site. On materials, the materials are consistent with those used on historic structures in the district. Rhythm and pattern of windows and door openings. The proposed fenestration on the front elevation is consistent with that of historic structures in the district. Staff did their job, and they provided a report with substantial and competent evidence. They concluded that our design, in its following with the guidelines set forth by the Secretary of Interiors of the United States of America, and those set forth by Chapter 23 entitled Historic Preservation of the City of Miami Code of Ordinances, is appropriate with this neighborhood. That this design does not adversely affect the aesthetic interest or value of the historic district. We have worked hard with city staff, as well as with neighbors of the property, and have been at this project for a long time to ensure that this design blends well with the neighborhood. We would like to finish by stating the conclusion by city staff. City staff got it right with their substantial and competent evidence report. I'm going to hope now that there isn't too much reverberation to show. Let me see. I'll just go over this briefly. This is the design that was presented. And here we're going forth with materials that we use for the project. Here we have a revised landscape plan. This was not what was submitted to the Historic Preservation Board in the last meeting because we revised it based on their comments. Most of the comments had to do with the actual landscaping with an oak tree in the front of the property and increasing the landscaping on the sides. So with regard to that, we actually did take notes with regard to the landscaping and revised it per not just their comments, but neighboring properties' comments that we had via a Zoom meeting a few months ago. Here are pictures of the existing vacant lot. Here are pictures of the actual street, 7th Street Road, where our property is. The two images on top are properties directly to our north. The other four are properties directly to the south, two of which are recently approved and constructed residences within the last few years, including two that were approved by the Historic Environmental Preservation Board. The two being 641 Northwest 7th Street Road and 631 Northwest 7th Street Road. 641 was an addition remodeling that was made to look more modern than it was prior, and 631 was a new residence constructed. Here we have images of the two-story residences on the site, on the street. The two properties to my north happen to have two-story structures on them, and those are the two modern properties to the south of my property. So that you can see the height difference between one and the others. You can see some are taller, some are lower, and I did a quick analysis to see that if the two properties to the north were actually built to flood criteria, they would be slightly taller than my property as well. And here you can see an analysis of what the height of the building would be if we went to maximum code, and in comparison to the height of the structure, the design that we designed. And here we have part of the analysis that I read at the beginning. That has to do with the form of the structure and how we actually used the existing or the previously existing structure as a guideline, which actually resembles a good amount of properties within the neighborhood in their form. Not necessarily the execution, but their form. And we included a couple of pages of the residential images of flat roof residences within Spring Gardens. As you can see, most of these are flat roofs with a parapet, similar to, not exactly similar, but different styles to what we're proposing. Another Historic Environmental Preservation Board approved residence nearby. And these are closer to our street, including, our neighbor to the south is a flat roof residence, as well as those two that are slightly more south to our property. Thank you. If you have any questions, I can answer anything that you may have.
Okay, so that was your introduction, or you complete?
No, I'm complete. I finished. If you have any questions, I'll gladly answer.
Before we go on to your questions, Mr. Garcia, is there any information that you want to present from the perspective of the city?
Thank you for the opportunity, sir. My colleague, Warren Adams, Preservation Officer, is on the conference as well. I defer to him if he cares to add any information.
Good evening. I'm sorry, Chair. My apologies for the interruption. Mr. City Attorney, does the oath need to be administered to the city staff? Or have they already taken have they already been sworn in?
They do need to be sworn in if they have not been sworn in already.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And your response is?
I do.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney.
Good evening, Warren Adams, Preservation Officer. The history of this site is there was originally a wood frame building on it. Back in 2015, the property owner applied to the Preservation Board to demolish it. The application was denied. It was appealed to City Commission, and City Commission approved the demolition. The house was torn down, and a new proposal for a single family home was taken to the board back in 2016. And there were a number of conditions attached to that. These conditions were carried forward into this new proposal, which is being done by a new owner of the site. So the conditions at the time were, number one, all glass shall be clear, which this property has. Condition 2 was the exterior wall finishing shall be simulated stucco with simulated planking, which this proposal has. The third condition was the applicant should consider a tile roof instead of an asphalt shingle. And this was where I advised the applicant that they may have problems going ahead with a flat roof. The applicant was insistent that they wanted a flat roof, and so we took it to the board with the possibility that the board could ask for a pitched roof, which they did not do. And the fourth condition was that the new building pay some homage to the frame vernacular building that existed on the property. Such details shall include, but not be limited to, the representation of horizontal siding in a contemporary way. So what the board did not look for was a reconstruction. They looked for a building that paid some homage to the previous wood frame building. And that is really what the applicants attempted to do. We took it back to the board, and the request for approval was denied by 3 votes to 6.
Question, sir, if I may. The applicant, all the ones that were placed before them, they comply with it, right? Hello?
The previous conditions?
Yes, all the conditions. I mean, the things, this is one thing that I don't understand. It's not that I am against historic preservation and all of that. I agree that, probably a certain type of architecture in some neighborhoods should be, preserved. But the truth of the matter is that the house was demolished, and that's an empty lot. And it has an owner that, in my opinion, has all the right a house to their liking, you see, as long as it is not something outrageous. But you ask for that type of roof, but there are other roofs, flat roofs in the area. I don't know anything about this proposal of this building, but it's a question that I have in my mind. Why are we denying these people that they cannot build the house that they want?
I want to kind of touch on that a little bit. And the house that was there, first of all, it wasn't a vacant lot. Before, let me be clear. There was a structure on that property, on that lot.
Yeah.
That structure was a contributing structure. And this board had an applicant, the previous seller to this owner, that came to this board and asked us to demolish the property.
Okay.
Demolishing a contributing structure is a very big deal in a historic district, especially in Spring Garden. Spring Garden is a community that is highly sought after because of its proximity to the water, right? You're right on the water. You're kind of tucked away from a lot of the happenings really in the busy, bustling city of Miami. And in this applicant, you all remember, it was a really big deal. Former, I think, firefighter, something of that nature, touted on really trying to pull the heartstrings of the commission, and how that person, all they want to do is rebuild the structure to make it safe in the exact same likeness of the house that used to be there. And many people in the community begged us not to do it. And because of the applicant and the presentation and the promise that this house was going to be built in its likeness again, to be a contributing, really to contribute back to the community the way that it should have been, we agreed to do it. And what it appears to me is that we were bamboozled, because now here we are, right, with the next applicant, who acknowledges, in the presentation, that look, there was a previously approved design that went through PZAP and through this board, and now here we are with a different design than what was promised. And it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know how we could have done it differently, in the sense of we all agreed that this structure that was supposed to be there was supposed to be built in a certain type of way, because it is in a historic district and it was a contributing structure. And for my new for Commissioner, for Alex Diaz-Portillo, a contributing structure is a structure that probably would never be demolished, but for life safety reasons.
Yeah.
That's, and this is, and the unfortunate part about it is that this is a history that people in Spring Garden start to feel like happens to them again and again. Because, for instance, the old SIBO house that was neglected and was promised to have been built right back in the same likeness. And this has been since the time that I started as commissioner. I've been pushing. Francisco knows this. We put it on an expedited list for the city of Miami. And it's just one of those things where I really do believe that someone has, within the city, I'm going to take a feather out of Commissioner Jocoroyo's book on this one, but I feel like we're being sabotaged, because there's no reason why. We have the money that's there, we have the plans, we had everything that we needed to move the project forward. It didn't get moved forward. And so this is in that same neighborhood. This is a contributing structure. This was demolished with the promise of being rebuilt in the same likeness. And all it was done was it was shot to the next person. I guess the perfect person to get the house demolished would have been the applicant that asked for it. Now here we are with another applicant that's asking to build a structure that's different. I appreciate the design that you show, that it mirrors some of the other houses in that space. But none of them would have been that original house that was there, that would not have been demolished in the first place, but for it being rebuilt in its exact likeness and for life safety reasons. And so the woman that had the presentation, I think if I remember correctly, she promised us she was going to live in the house. This was her dream property. It went on and on and on. It was one of the toughest decisions that we made, and we did it. And now here we are again in a very short time period, with a different application for a different design. And I think that's probably why PZAB voted it down, because they remember. Francisco, were you what did you recommend?
Mr. Chair.
Before you go, I want to get
what do you know the history? I don't.
Yeah.
What do you recommend? What do you want done here?
I would like the original. If it were up to me, what I would ask this board to do would be to deny the appeal from the health board, and we would stand with the decision of the health board.
Can I move that, and then we have the debate after?
Yes.
Okay, I want to make that motion then, sir, and then
Second
take it from there.
It's
your district. You represent it.
That's right. But could you please, excuse me, because I have to clear my mind. Could you please be more specific? What you are trying to do is you are denying the appeal. You want to deny the appeal, and the project. What we'll do is the project that it is proposed will not take place, right? The house will not be built.
Not in the design that's being set forth, but the house will be built in the exact design that was
approved before.
Yes.
And if my memory doesn't betray me, they were before us a couple of years, or last year or at the beginning of. I mean, I remember about what you mentioned when you mentioned is my dream house and all of that. Is this the same owner that came before us?
No, that owner sold to this owner.
Okay, but what fault does this owner have now that the other owner got a? I mean,
well, the thing about it is that, I mean, we can speculate as to the cost of acquiring the property. We can speculate to having to go through the health board and demolishing the house in the first place. I mean, who was the best person to actually move it through? I mean, you can speculate to. Hold on one second. Hold on one second. We can speculate into a number of these different issues, but ultimately, the property that was demolished is a property that it's like it would have been one of the most protected. It still is to this day, the most protected classes of properties in the city of Miami. And but for what was promised to this commission, it would not have been demolished. For instance, I highly doubt that even if this property owner had the property intact and proposed to demolish that structure and build a different structure, even with similarities, that it would have still been greatly opposed because because you were tearing out a contributing structure and replaced it with something that was not that.
I do agree with you, Janet, but it is demolished. It was demolished. It's irreplaceable. It shouldn't have been demolished. It's irreplaceable. But now, how are we going to solve this problem?
If I may interject for a second, because I've designed in areas that have historic districts multiple times, including in Coral Gables, and I've had many meetings with the historic board there as well. And if you have a structure that's an existing structure that's historic, whether or not it's in flood zones or not, you are actually prohibited from demolishing the historic structure, period. You design around it, you design additions to it, but the more important historic portions of said structure, you don't touch that. You reinforce it, you scaffold it, if need be, to an extreme scenario. And the Secretary of the Interior of the United States of America actually states, guidelines, because it's a guideline. They tell you you can even go to the extreme of actually lifting the structure, reinforcing the foundation, and protecting it further from flood level criteria. So there are solutions to this, and I've seen it. You see it in Europe a lot. They actually do raise the structures to avoid flood waters, to avoid like overflowing of rivers, to protect the existing historic structures. But we're not discussing, and we're not discussing. And I do understand your point. Yes, of course.
The owner made the presentation. All of that came into a discussion. They gave lots of testimony. They brought lots of witnesses, experts that all said that what would have been required would have destroyed the property, would have this, would have that, because they wanted to live in the property. I'm just telling you.
I would disagree because we're actually currently doing that in Coral Gables. It's reinforcing the heck out of it.
Every property is
protected. Yeah, but you're supposed to repair as much as you can, but add and remodel and update, but not demolish. Once you demolish, and they've actually told me that if from some sort of negligence something happens, the owner would be fined. If the existing historic structure were to fall for any reason, they'd be fined, but the new design would have to be a new design, not a replication, because it's at this point it's a new property. And I definitely respect historic neighborhoods. I respect historic residences. If this were a historic house, I would absolutely do an addition that doesn't replicate, because actually, even if you do an addition to a residence that's historic, you're not supposed to replicate. As a matter of fact, historic districts or departments tell you, do not replicate. Do something that pays homage, that works with its scale. Maybe it's similar fenestrations, but you don't replicate the structure. Maybe they even tell you to change the finish, so that it distinguishes the original structure from what's new, because you want to respect what's new, but it's never supposed to overshadow what's historic.
Through the chair, I do understand your position, Mr. Commissioner. I do understand, but my concern is, I don't know, because I don't know anybody yet, but my concern is that these people that bought the house, you see, and now they want to build in that lot. I mean, we are, they are going, I think they're being victimized because, I mean, they bought an empty lot, you see?
No, they knew where they bought. And when you buy, they knew where they bought.
But he had come before us and we have voted and to allow them to build in that lot to the previous owner, which was a lady. And I thought it was her, you see? And that I remember, I mean, about my dream home, and I'm going to live on it. And I mean, you're right, we were bamboozled. I know that. Now I know. But what I want to know is now that this new owners, they are in this predicament that they bought a house and in a lot that had a historic house and they want to build on it. How can they build on it? Is there any way that they can reform, or they have certain conditions that they be able to build the house in that lot?
Well, certainly, Mr. Adams presented a plan that, Mr. Adams agreed that the house could be built as they presented, and it would fall within the guidelines. When it was presented to PZAB rejected it. That's why the vote was what it was. Now, I want Francisco to really kind of talk to us about happiness, so we have a better understanding of exactly what happened.
Yes, I would like Francisco to tell me. I mean, is there any way of that lot would not ever be built unless it is a replica of the old house? I don't know.
So I thank you for the opportunity. I will summarize. First, I'll share with you that a couple of years ago, when this item was heard by the City Commission,
yes, I remember.
Your Planning Department, your Preservation Office recommended against the demolition of the building, but we all agree that the then property owner made a very impassioned plea for what we thought was a good result. That said, and once the existing structure was demolished, I have to agree with Mr. Khalil that best practice is once the building is demolished, is that the same building not be replicated or rebuilt, precisely for the reasons that have been stated, which are that the new building codes that apply today, when applied to the structure, would inevitably result in a somewhat more building, and that would not do the original justice. With that in mind, the best outcome we feel is a building that a structure, a single family residence in this case, that both respects the character of the area and relates well or harmonizes with its context. We feel, in our professional opinion, that this proposal does so. However, if the particular design does not pass muster with the commission, an alternative certainly is for the commission to remand this particular application to the HEP board with specific instructions as to what it would like to see. Because to be quite frank with you, the Historic and Environmental Preservation Board, upon their series of reviews, were frankly less than clear and coherent in providing feedback to the applicants. So I think everyone would benefit from that.
So to make it clear, your advice is to send it back to PZAB?
With specific directions, if at all possible, because everyone would benefit from that.
Okay, that is fair. I don't know. I mean, I just want to try to be fair, and I know why the chairman is really upset because we were taken for a ride. I mean, and you're right, and we have to that is a historic neighborhood, and we have to do everything that is possible to protect that neighborhood, and at the same time, any construction that is going to take place have to be in agreement with the neighborhood and have to be protected. But Commissioner, what do you want to do?
And now is the Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was about to ask the exact same thing Commissioner Reyes said. Commissioner, if you feel that the presentation as proposed is certainly not up to muster with the Historic Preservation Board's recommendations. Do you feel they need to go back to square one to what was agreed in that original HEP Board decision and Commission decision? Or do you believe there's a middle ground that they need to alter what they've presented to make it more in line with the vernacular of the community?
I'm sure, you know, it makes me a lot more comfortable if what was agreed to in the past was what we all, you know, yeah, correct. However, politics is about, you know, compromise, right? And,
Yes, sir.
and to that extent, at least if they went back to HEP Board and garnered HEP Board's support with somewhat of mediation or meeting of the minds when it comes to the sort of design that would be acceptable to them. Because look, I'll be honest with you. Do I think that the victims? No. I think that someone, you don't buy in Spring Garden vacant lots unless you're savvy and you have the resources to hire someone like Mr. Khalil and do these specific HEP Board applications. I mean, this is a complicated process. This is not, you know, someone buying their first house with a 3% loan, right? So there's a bit of savviness that I know goes on into these types of deals. But with that being said, I try to be cognizant of, I know how we all feel. I mean, I've been serving on this board for a long time, and we all have respect for property owners' rights, but we also have respect for our historic districts. And so, you know, the people who buy historic districts buy there for a reason. They buy there, many of them, for the protections that are there. They fully expect the homes to continue to reflect the way that they are for many, many years. And honestly, it makes me feel like we failed by simply having taboos about people that we thought were doing good. You know, and so it really upsets me to be here having to talk about this issue again. Which reminds me, before I take a vote, Jennings disclosures. We haven't done our Jennings disclosures. I know certainly at least one person in Spring Garden reached out to me regarding this issue, simply saying that this issue was coming up, and I was. I'm trying to get it. They said that the issue was coming up, and reminding me that this was the same property that we approved in the past. So I want to make that to be known as a Jennings disclosure before I take a vote on this issue.
If I may say one more thing.
Yes.
We did present a completely different design back in November, and that design was not recommended by Historic, by Mr. Adams. He gave a report which basically just stated that I complied with one out of the 6 main items that he did, and that was completely denied. And I listened to the Historic Preservation Board, and I stated my case, and they actually said to me, almost verbatim, that they understand, because they had a few neighbors come up and state that this was not the previous design. This was not the previous design. I think I had 5 neighbors show up and say that statement, and I made my statement saying that it does not need to replicate. As a matter of fact, it's against the board. It's against the guidelines, or it's not what the guidelines say to do for historic properties. But we listened to the board's comments and we redesigned based on the board's comments, because they stated it does not have to replicate. It can be a flat roof residence. And one of the things that to help our case would be to show that we are not maximizing our height, that we are actually compared to neighboring properties at a lower scale, which works with the neighboring properties, which works with the existing historic neighborhoods. And if I'm not mistaken, and Mr. Adams, please correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that in your original report with the design presented by the previous architect, you actually mentioned that the design does not have to replicate, that you did approve it, although replication was not a necessity or even a recommendation. I'm paraphrasing, but that's from your original report for the original design. I think that the previous applicants did that design to make it easiest for them, not because it's necessarily approved. And I do believe that design the original building should never have been demolished. But this is where we are.
Well,
so
do
yeah.
you think that we should send it back to the I don't know what the commissioner want to do? want to send it back. Francisco, what do you think?
That is, again, based on the testimony provided here today, a remanded case back to the HEP board is most prudent. But again, I have to emphasize that that is the case. Specific guidance from the commission is going to be very much welcome because they've been before the HEP board a number of times. And again, the feedback they've received simply has not been clear enough to provide a positive outcome.
Well, it's up to them then to pay attention to what the HEP board said.
So Francisco, but when it was with the HEP board before, as it was explained on the record, one design was not approved. This design obviously was not approved, but at least it was approved by or recommended by Mr. Adams. Now, has there ever been any consideration of Mr. Khalil? Has there ever been any consideration of what was originally designed there? Did when you bought the home or bought the property, when the property was purchased, were there approved building plans for that site, or was it all just design? Tell me where we
It
were.
was, so what was presented to, that I was aware of at the time, Ms. Castrillon presented to me some plans, which the owner gave her and said that these are plans that were sent to the city. That's it. Nothing was approved, nothing was submitted to construction document phase. And that's very common for an owner to come to us, a new owner with a vacant lot saying, hey, I bought this property with some preliminary plans. As a matter of fact, it's actually normal for a client to come to us to say, I have this property and here are some approved set of plans, but I don't want to do this design. That's not uncommon. That happens to me all the time. I get 3-4 projects like that a year with a previous design. I don't think twice about it. Understanding that there's a historic board means that, to me, it means that I have to comply with the historic neighborhood and go with form and function of that neighborhood. And I see that there are some contemporary projects on that neighborhood that actually respect the form, function, scale, so on and so forth, the guidelines set forth by the city of Miami in Chapter 23 for historic guidelines, and by the guidelines set forth by the Secretary of Interiors. So it's all that was given to us prior to was nothing uncommon. The conditions, and once we went into it, and once I started researching more prior to the first presentation, this is November in 2019. Prior, when I say prior to, I mean immediate to that presentation, I started reading all the previous presentations from the originally approved design, which to me read as, this is something that they'll approve, but it's not necessarily, it's not a mandate that it needs to replicate the design. But I went into it pretty much understanding that November 2019 project was going to get denied because that was a very contemporary project and it didn't work with the scale of the neighborhood. And I took all the comments from Historic Board to heart. There were some very, very well stated statements to be made. And some of the neighbors that I spoke with after the presentation, because I've spoken with many of the neighbors, they acknowledged to me that that whatever new project we presented did not have to replicate what was there prior. They understood after I spoke with them, because prior to that meeting, they thought a replication was what needed to be presented, but that's not what was approved prior to. Those weren't any of the conditions.
Francisco, do you remember, do you know for a fact if there were building plans that were submitted on this parcel?
Yes, Commissioner, there was a previous approval obtained. If you were to see, again, for the benefit of this commission, if you were to see the previous plan, it was essentially mimicry of the original structure. Again, in our professional eyes, not a desirable outcome. And if I were to put side by side that previously approved version of the plans with the presently proposed version of the structure, the present proposal, the one Mr. Khalil has designed, really captures the character, the scale, the configuration, while rendering it a contemporary structure, which we feel is about as successful as one can get. But again, we are sensitive also to the fact that some might prefer something that mimics more closely the original. That's also a valid take. However, to get to that fine point where you're paying enough homage to the original structure while still rendering it relevant for modern day design is really a subjective and nuanced thing. That's hard to get to.
One thing I will say from your presentation, Mr. Khalil, personally, from the design that you presented, just the preliminary design that you presented, of course, I don't have any other designs besides that. You can tell that you did borrow from what was there, but also bring it a bit up to the standard of what you're seeing today. So, you know, I will compliment you on that. So Sharon, great job. You know, you picked the right architect for that sort of look. I'm deeply concerned though about the message that this sends, right? There are a few moments that we've had on the city commission where we feel like we were taken for a ride, and this is not your fault, but this is one of those parts to me. Another would be like what happened with our friends on Biscayne Boulevard with the flag that's painted on top of the building. And so it just feels like one of those moments. And so the question becomes, Francisco, if we were talking about ensuring that this project could at least get the support of PZAP, which means to me that you have some sort of community support for what is going to be there, what would you recommend, and what would be acceptable to as recommendations for this project?
So let me attempt my hand at trying to capture the sentiment that has been expressed here. The sentiment is that the building go further towards respecting the original design and pay greater homage, if possible, to the original design. What we are glad to do, if you should remand this back to the HEP board, is work with the applicant to try to get them to a design that achieves that, and hopefully take it back to the HEP board. Again, with the instruction from this commission that is the direction, that the present design pay greater homage to the original structure, and hopefully get to a successful result.
Mr. Khalil, if you had to design a structure that paid greater homage to the original house, what would you do but still satisfy the desires of your client? What do you, from the top of your head?
So some of the things that I remember from the last presentation that we had, that actually, and also neighboring comments, were just introducing more warmer elements to the actual design. Something, let's say, like wood shutters, or even if it's a contemporary approach to wood shutters, but the actual introduction of a wood material would actually warm the actual facade of the residence. The other thing that we actually did was the landscaping, but that was one of the comments that were easier for us to accomplish at this point. But something that would go more into the design aspect of it, the actual residence, is introducing warmer materials to the facade, so you don't see so much of the more modern materials that some people can be iffy on with regard to aesthetic. And I think that's something that, I mean, the other things, the roof that we have, I think is very much, and we lowered it, and it's a much lower roof that goes well with the neighborhood. So I think and I don't know if there's a way that I think there is a way that works with the neighborhood, then I could actually raise part of the grade at the front facade. So, which is what you see in a lot of neighboring properties, to actually make the house feel even lower in scale so that it fits even more. But I think the biggest thing is touching up the facade with certain design elements. Like, again, introducing an exterior wood shutter, a more contemporary approach to it, but an actual wood shutter. So that way it's in compliance with a lot of the wood shutters or wood elements in that neighborhood. And it becomes a little bit more toned down in its mid-century modern approach.
And I'll be honest with you, mid-century modern is my favorite design element. So look, I'm a softie when it comes to this, right? I'm going to do you a favor. I don't want to see the project denied. What I would like to see is, I don't want to see vacant lots in Spring Garden. I want to see lots that are fully developed where you have beautiful homes. There's some award-winning designs in Spring Garden. You have properties that are going for $2 million plus in Spring Garden. So obviously, this is an area where people care about design, and then you have these elements and these restrictions that help you hire people who can give you great designs. And so, what I would like to do is this. First, as you're aware, I'm not going to be here forever. I have a couple more meetings or so. But certainly, the representation that you made to my colleagues are things that they're going to remember. Now, you have some commissioners that believe greatly in private property rights, and yet we're still having this conversation. And that's because they also respect neighborhoods. I mean, most of the commissioners come from historic neighborhoods, not necessarily by your standard, declaring it historic, but neighborhoods where homes were built in the early 20s and et cetera. So there's lots of character in those neighborhoods. And so it appears from your presentation, I take you at your word. There's nothing you said to me that appears to be dishonest or deceiving by any means. And so what I would like, Senator, is, and Francisco, you can help with this in the wording. If we remanded, instead of denying, we will remand it back to PZAP with the specifics of coming more into compliance with what they described to you, with what you just described in the record, softening the facade, paying a little bit more homage to the mid-century modern elements to it, getting more feedback from the neighbors, so that it really does. It doesn't necessarily. It's not necessarily the exact same model. I can understand why you wouldn't want the exact same structure, but still lends to that character of the structure that was there. So I want you to be able to achieve. I want you to be able to achieve what you're looking for, but I want it to be something that doesn't necessarily. It's like you want it to stand out, but you don't want you don't want to be a sore problem, right? And that's what I'm saying to you. So,
Mr. Chair, I'll amend my motion to remand with your caveats, and we'll take it from there.
Right, and I'll agree to that, to what you just described. Francisco, is there something that should we say something differently, or do you think that sufficiently characterizes what we're looking for?
If I may suggest the verbiage, and I will ask also the architect to listen to what I am saying to see if it resonates and begins to make sense too. My sense is that the ask is that the materiality of the design be better reflective and more in tune with its context, the historical context of the neighborhood. And so we will be working with the applicant to have that materiality in the exterior configuration of the building be more contextual than it presently is.
Or without being overly burdensome, right?
Right. That's essentially what I'm correct.
Right. I mean, let's be fair.
That's why I'm doing this. That's why I want to give them the opportunity. And Sharon, I can't, just from reading your last name, I can't pronounce it. Can you say your last name for me?
Castrillon.
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 So it's misspelled on the screen. I think
it's like portilla. It's like portilla. The LL is like a Y.
We're missing I after the screen, so that's why it was kind of difficult for me.
The two L's are like a Y.
So
Portilla, Castrillon.
And I want to tell you directly, I really do wish you the absolute best with this property. I want you to have something that everybody feels happy with. You and those who are your neighbors who've been there for a long time and who plan on being there. Because I think that even with you being there, if a property was demolished that was near you and they were proposing to build something, you would want it to be something that would complement your house that you spent your money to build. So I hope you understand. I'm not trying to be overly burdensome. I hope you understand that what we're trying to do is to respect that neighborhood. It's a beautiful neighborhood, and we still want you to have your creative, feelings. I don't know if you're going to live there. I'm not even going to ask you if you're going to plan on staying there, if you're going to sell it. That's not, this is America, whatever. But at least where we've had these guidelines, we at least want to make sure that, that neighborhood is respected. So instead of denying, which was my first mind, what I'm thinking is, let's just remand it. Let's come into compliance with some of the things that we've just described in the record. And then you'll be back before this commission and I'm sure you're going to have their support because we know that it looks like with your architect and your demeanor that you're going to do the right thing because this is something you want to do.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Most definitely. Thank you, Kim.
Is that fair? Is that fair, everyone?
I think that's very fair.
Okay, wonderful. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam City Attorney, is that it's an ordinance? No. Does it need to be read to the record?
No, Chairman.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All against? That motion passes. Thank you so very much. I
Thank you
appreciate
so
you.
much. Have a great night.
Have a good night.
Night.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your indulgence in that. We got through that. Now we're in our budget meeting. So, if all, yes.
So we're adjourning the regular meeting. I just need a minute to flip the tape.
Okay, sure. So if all hearts and minds are clear on the regular meeting agenda, that meeting is adjourned, and then we'll allow the clerk to do his magic so we can start the budget meeting.
How many of you have dinner yet? Why don't we take a few minutes? I need something, man. I'm starving.
Okay, let's take a 10-minute break and come back.
15.
I think Commissioner Carollo just came back from dinner. It's my
Yes.
No, that's not true.
He
I was here
disappeared.
listening. I just had it
No,
on.
but you were listening. You're always paying attention, but I think
He was-
you had a little
I was
bite.
here listening to everything.
Yeah, he was,
But I think you had a little bite on the side.
he
No, I
was
haven't. I
listening
wish I
and
would.
chewing. You can do both. Listen.
You know, I get antsy when I don't have food.
Antsy. That's a word of the day. Antsy.
Antsy.
Right? Or frustrated.
Well, frustrated. As long as you don't get frustrated, that's
If
fine.
we get frustrated or antsy, we're good to go. You know. So I have asked my friend Julio to bring me some Cuban coffee because the Red Bull didn't work for me, Commissioner Russell.
That's
The
right.
Red Bull doesn't work. I need Cuban coffee. I mean, I
That's
need
right.
stuff, you know.
Well, that
I
is
thought you
the,
got him to bring in something to
you
eat.
know,
Yeah,
The-
I did the Red Bull. It didn't work, so I'm getting some coffee now.
you know better. You know that Cubans Red Bull is coffee. Cuban coffee.
Of course.
And-
We invented Red Bull.
Let me
Absolutely.
see where I could go to get a quick hamburger.
Yeah. Oh, delicious.
Go ahead.
So we could probably do the entire budget in I think 20 minutes, right?
We should. We'll see.
I think it should be fast. I mean, I recommend
hope
to
so.
the chair that we start with our new district offices and we have that debate quickly, get that out of the way, and then do everything else.
That's right.
Okay, but what we're gonna do first is take the 15-minute break that was requested.
And we
then,
come back.
And we come back.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
We have people to call
I'm
back.
not gonna.